Hi everyone, this is Yana, and today I'm sharing a scenic card using stamps and dies from Neat Tangled. So here's a sample of what I plan to make today. I made a few test runs and decided which stamps and dies and colors of inks I wanted to use for my card. The idea was to create a scene using various stamps from Neat Tangled as well as the new on the corner die. Other than stamps pictured in my samples, for my final project, I also wanted to include the sunburst stamp to create some sun rays on my card. I plan to use the on the corner set with on the corner additions and of course the matching die to do my die cutting. I actually already have that piece ready. I had it stamped on a piece of pattern paper from Studio Calico. I believe this was their Here and There collection, and I added some shading with some gray Copic markers and then die cut this piece using a matching die which is called the On the Corner die. Now, I'm also going to use these clouds from the cloud set from Neat Tangled to do my sky. I'm going to have a few of them masked on my background. I also want to use this You plus Me set to do the hills on my card behind the house. I will be using a circle outline and will mask it to make it look like there are hills, steep hills behind the house. Another set that I plan to use is this Stop and Go. I want to use the street light as well as this little person stamp on my card. To create the street name sign, I have selected this Christmas set called Merry and Bright, and I will be using this long stamp to create something similar to a horizontal pole. This will also include some masking. Next, I have a simple Christmas set, and I'm going to use this house stamp that you see there behind the street sign. And finally, I have the A Lot to Say stamp to complete making the street name sign. Now, the key to making this, practically a one-layer scenic stamped card is to determine which objects are placed closer to you and which are located further. So the ones that are closest to you are going to be bigger than those in the background, and they're also going to be stamped first. All the other objects are going to be placed behind them, and therefore will require some kind of masking. So in my case, the street sign is the closest, but because I've had a die cut, I can add it to the card at the very end. I still need to decide where I want it placed, but I don't need to stamp this particular image at all. Now, other than the street sign, I have a house and a street light closer to me, or very close to me. So I'm going to skip the house and come back to it later and begin working on my street light and my sky first. Now, because the street light and the house are far apart from each other and they do not block or intersect with each other, there really is no difference as to which stamp first. I can either begin with the street sign and work on my sky, or stamp the house and work on my ground first. It really doesn't matter. So I'm going to begin with the sky. Now, cards like this take some planning and some preparation. So before you begin working on your card, you need to create some masks for all the items that are going to need them. In my case, all but one in the furthest back, that being a sunshine, need masks. So I've already made my masks out of some thin paper. You can use masking paper or thin printer paper for this. Just really make sure you're using something thin. You don't want to use cardstock for masking. If you've never made a mask before, all you need to do is stamp an image that needs to be masked on a piece of paper and cut it out. You can choose to leave a small border around the image, like the one you have when you use dies, or you can cut directly following the outline of the image. If you're using masking paper for your masks, you're all set to go. But if you're using regular paper, you also need some kind of repositionable adhesive to hold your masks in place. Now, because most of my images are going to be colored with Copic markers, I'm going to use this Memento Tuxedo Black ink to do my stamping. It's not going to bleed and will remain nice and crisp after I do my coloring. So I'm going to start by stamping the street light first. I'm placing it more towards the top right-hand corner, just like I have it on my test image. Next, I'm going to stamp this long curved element to begin building my street name sign. Because there is not going to be any overlapping, I don't need to use my masks just yet. I can simply eyeball it and place it directly above the street light. It's actually going to serve as some sort of a pole that my street light is attached to. Once again, I'm using this Memento Tuxedo Black ink to do my stamping. Now, I did mask the street light on my test image and ended up having a small white outline around it. I didn't want any of that on my finished project, so I skipped masking this time and made it look like the street line is actually attached to the pole. I'm now going to mask the area above the pole. I have my masks ready and I already have some repositionable adhesive on the back of it. If you're using masking tape, you don't really need any, but if you're using regular paper for your masks, you need to make sure to add some repositionable adhesive to the back of your mask to help it stay in place. Before I can do any more stamping, I need to mask my street light as well. These two images are going to overlap slightly, and because I want the street light to be located in the front or closer to me, I need to mask it. So now I can grab my lot to say stamped and stamp. Next, I'm going to add the on the corner off to that street name sign. Once again, stamping this in Memento Tuxedo black ink. I'm going to put the masks back on. Now, I don't have a mask for that top image, so I'm going to make one. So I'm going to ink my stamp, well, actually a part of it, just the one that I need for the mask, stamp that on a piece of thin notebook paper, and you don't have to worry about your stamping at this point. It doesn't really have to be perfect. It only needs to be good enough so that you can cut around it. Next, use your scissors and cut your mask out. Now, this mask is a rather tricky one. I don't know where to cut the top off, so I'm going to place it on my card, then stamp that pole on top of it. And notice that I'm not adding any more ink to the pole so that I don't mess up my stamping. I'm just using the leftover ink that's there on the stamp. So now I can finish cutting my mask out, and next I'm going to add some repositionable adhesive to the back of the mask and stick to my project. So now it's time to start stamping clouds. I'm going to use the soft blue ink from Simon Says Stamp and do my stamping. Now I'm going to stamp 3 clouds just like I did on my test image. There are several different clouds in this cloud set from Neat Tangled, and they all have various patterns inside. I like this chevron type pattern and used it. You can choose to use a different one, or you can make all of them different. Just remember to make masks for all of your clouds. So I stamped the first overlapping the street name sign, and then the second overlapping the street light, and finally the last one only partially on the top of my card. After I'm done with my clouds, I'm going to keep the mask that I already have there on my card and add more. I'm going to cover the stamped clouds and then add my sunshine. Now, to do my stamping, I'm going to use this dye yellow ink from Tsukineko. So I'm going to thoroughly ink my stamp and make an impression. Now, make sure to apply good amount of pressure when stamping the sunshine, as we do have a double layer of masks in some areas, and they might prevent us from stamping a clear image. Mine didn't really stamp very well at all, or at first, so the top part of the sunshine was almost missing. So I inked my stamp again, aligned it on the card, and stamped again. Now, this time I picked my paper together with the stamp. I was very careful not to move it or shift it in any direction, and I pressed with my fingers from the back of the paper across all of the areas that didn't stamp the first time. And it really worked beautifully. I had a gorgeous sunshine stamped on my card. I then removed the masks and rewheeled that beautiful sky. You can see it looks a lot better with the sunshine. I think that the sunshine gives a lot more bright and maybe cheerful look to a card. So next I'm going to move on to stamping the bottom part of my card, the house, the hills, and the little guy. Once again, I'm using Memento Tuxedo black ink to stamp the house. Next, I'm going to cover it up with a pre-made mask and move on to working on the hills. Now, because I already had marks on my house mask from stamping the hills on my test paper, I can now simply align my stamping and stamp the hills in the same spot. But this is actually not crucial. If there were no masks, I would have eyeballed and stamped the hills in approximately the same way. Notice that because the house is closer to me, just like the street light, I stamped it first, then masked, and then moved on to stamping the objects that are farther away. Now, I'm not worried at all about the bottom part of the paper, and I'm not masking it because I know I will be covering it up with some pattern paper. I also have a mask of a hill, so I'm going to mask one that is closer to me and then stamp the one that is located further. Looks really cool, right? And remember, all of this is still just one layer of paper. So now I also added a bold black line underneath the house to somehow ground it and then have something to stamp my little guy on. Now, it's time to do my coloring. I'm going to use Copic markers to color my images. Now, I'm not a pro when it comes to coloring or Copic markers, so I'm not going to show you this part in detail. I'm basically just going to use a few shades of gray to color the street name sign and the street light, a few shades of green to do my hills, and then a few shades of red to do the house. So here is what my colored card looks like. Like I said, I'm no pro when it comes to coloring, so please don't laugh. Now I just need to adhere my street light, add some pattern paper, and finish making my card. So I'm going to use this brown arrow paper from Here and There 6x6 pad from Studio Calico and adhere it to the bottom of my card. Next, I'm going to add this little dude next to the house to sort of tie him together with all the street walking theme. I'm also going to add a matching stamp to the inside of the street light just to make it look a bit more realistic. And I'm using some gray ink from Tsukinako to do my stamping. Finally, I'm going to adhere the previously stamped and die-cut street sign to the card. I used multi-matte medium from Ranger to adhere the main part of the sign down, and now I'm using some foam squares to add some dimension to my card. Next, I'm going to adhere this stamped and colored piece to a green A2 top folding card and add some gray twine from Doodlebug to complete my project. I hope you enjoyed this video. All the supplies I used to create this card are listed below in the video description and on my blog for your convenience. Please be sure to click that like button, drop me a comment, and share this video with your crafty friends. And if you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you.